I'm Felix Camacho.
I'm Tony Adams.
We approve this message.
I'm Sam Mabini Young. We all have the power to make change in our community. In the upcoming election, you get to select quality and proven candidates. At senatormabini.com, learn about my background and platform. See how I prioritize training and education to support the rebuilding of our economy. Learn about smarter government, meaning efficient and customer service-oriented GovCom operations and a part-time legislature that works for you. And let's get to realistic, affordable housing and getting rid of harmful drugs in our community. I'm Shirley Sam Mabini Young, number 11, Republican ballot side, humbly asking for your important vote.
Gina Ramos, Treasurer.
In a huge auto emissions case.
German auto supplier Bosch will pay $25 million to settle allegations that it made defeat devices, which made vehicles appear to pass emission tests, but in reality, those vehicles were spewing pollution at many times the limit. The California Air Resources Board said the company's technology was at the heart of the automobile emissions cheating scandals at Volkswagen and Fiat Chrysler, and that has led directly to increased emissions. Bosch said in a statement it doesn't acknowledge the validity of the claims. A judge needs to sign off on the agreement. Jill Nato, Fox News.
A newly launched cargo capsule has run into trouble with a solar panel after liftoff. Only one of the two solar panels on the Northrop Grumman capsule opened successfully following Monday's pre-dawn liftoff. NASA says the company has assured them there's enough power for Wednesday's rendezvous with the International Space Station, but NASA is still assessing the situation. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres telling world leaders at the annual climate conference they must cooperate or perish, telling the U.S. and China in particular to work together for a world solidarity pact on climate issues. It's been a disturbing find in Jackson, Mississippi.
Police in Mississippi's capital city say they discovered a decapitated body after they got a call about a dog carrying a severed human arm. Police in Jackson say the body was discovered on Saturday in an abandoned house in the woods. The arm was recovered on a street near that abandoned house, but Hinds County Coroner Sharon Grisham Stewart says the head hadn't been located as of Monday morning. The coroner says the victim appeared to be male and that this case is Jackson's 117th homicide so far this year. John Saucier, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Up a day, I'm Senator Chris Duenas. We've gone from a viral pandemic to a drug epidemic. It is time to stand up the multi-agency unified law enforcement group to stem the flow of drugs and combat crime with force. MAULIC is not just another task force, it is a program focused on stopping the distribution of meth and opioids, as well as placing enough police officers patrolling our streets. It is time to make Guam MAULIC again.
Re-elect Senator Chris Duenas. The fight continues.
I am Chris Duenas, and I approve this message.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show. Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle. Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104, playing Guam's favorite classic hits. Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday, and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mix Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show,
Still running away.
Kimmy A. Minor, Lickle Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Soldiers. Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I remind you of that every day because it's a real good tip-off as to what this program's about. It's about the Constitution, about the rule of law, freedom, liberty, conservatism, the way things ought to be. So if that's what you're interested in, you have come to the right place. But if it's not what you're interested in, man, you've really come to the right place because you all need some warning. And that's what we're going to provide today, right, Jose?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going to start out with perhaps the least informative part of the show. I call it Zemi Ikotni. It's my backwards bilingual play on words. It translates the way I translate it to Meet the Press, but it's much better than the one that PMSNBC runs. It's a good feature of the show. It's just that the newspapers don't write editorials anymore. The Daily News writes pop, fluff, softballs, news stories recast as editorials, anything to fill the news hole but a real editorial. The Post gave up a couple months ago, so I'm still kind of clinging to what's left. So I'm going to read today's editorial. Today I'm going to give the editorial boardroom over at the Daily News high grades for a swift and sure grasp of the obvious, disdaining anything that looks like subtlety, etc. For those on either side of the election aisle, Election Day couldn't come soon enough. Political campaigns can be brutal, physically and mentally and emotionally draining for the candidates, their families, and those in a candidate's inner sanctum. On Guam, situations often get personal. But once we've cleared the board of the animosity, attack ads, and the divisive words, the social media keyboard warriors, it's clear to see that no matter what color your hat is or which motorcade you burned your tank of gas in, we're all fighting for the same thing. A safer, stronger Guam. I don't go along with that at all. How we get there and who we choose to lead the way should no longer divide us once the final results are tallied. That's the beauty of democratic elections. We will spend a year fighting for the Godzu of our choice, knowing full well that come November 9, the healing must begin and the work to build a better Guam will go on. Fight, heal, build again. Such is the nature of small-town politics where everyone is family. No matter who you support this election season, and no matter what the polls say about where your candidates stand, head out to your precinct and cast your ballot. Participate in the act of democracy that many have given their lives to protect, and so many others have died never knowing. The Pacific Daily News opinion section will be here for Guam to publish our readers' latest issues with government. Well, that'll be a fresh start. We are built for it. Well, not so we could notice. But this ability to do so without fear of retribution goes hand in hand with exercising your right to vote. The responsibility of voting comes with a right to complain. And the right to complain comes with the responsibility to act. Our leaders and the hardworking staff of the Election Commission, under the guidance of Executive Director Maria Pangilinan. Let's give Maria a big hand, Jose. Maria does a great job. Have done an extraordinary job in making voting more accessible than ever. There are no excuses, fellow constituents. Take action. If you didn't vote early this year, vote for your families, vote for the future, vote for Guam. Well, I suppose it's sort of a rallying cry. It could be worse. And then I'm going to offer my own little editorial piece here. And this ties right in with where we are today. I think it was yesterday that I read the Alexander Tytler piece that holds that a democracy can only last for 200 years. Because once a democracy kicks in, the folks figure out that they can vote themselves largesse from the Treasury. And once they figure this out, it doesn't take long for democracy to turn into bondage. So we were favored last time around, where Governor Leanne Guerrero bought the election with her own money. This time around, she bought it with our money. And, you know, one of her more famous sayings, and she was a regular Joe Biden when it comes to cranking him out, one of the things she said was, at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm going to provide a $10,000 gift to the survivors of everyone who dies from COVID. You know, it's tough, it's hard, et cetera, et cetera. And then she said, it's the least I can do. And that's what prompted what I'm going to read now. I was aware of this piece way back then, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I have it now. So this is by a guy named Jacob Hornberger. He says, when I first discovered libertarianism in the late 1970s, I came across an essay entitled, Not Yours to Give. The essay was published by the Foundation for Economic Education in Irvington-on-Hudson, New York, where I would go to work as a program director in 1987. The essay had a big impact on me because it explained very simple, easy to understand way why it was morally wrong for the federal government to help people in need. You got that? Morally wrong for the federal government to help people in need. Everybody knows that's what the federal government's for, right? That was a big revelation, given that I was a liberal Democrat in my hometown of Laredo. Before I discovered libertarianism, I couldn't understand how anyone could object to government helping people who needed help. After all, I figured it was the government's money. Everybody knows, well, it's just the government's money. In 1827, Davy Crockett had been elected to Congress from the state of Tennessee. The essay revolved around his race for re-election in 1829. It would be difficult to find a better explanation as to how our nation has abandoned its founding principles. Given that the midterm elections are next week, actually today, the central message in that essay is particularly timely. As Crockett was campaigning for re-election, he encountered a farmer named Horatio Bunce. Crockett asked him for his vote. Bunce politely responded that although he had voted for Crockett 2 years before, he would not vote for him again. Taken aback, Crockett asked Bunce why. Bunce told him that Crockett's support of a particular bill demonstrated that Crockett had no understanding of the Constitution, which meant that he wasn't qualified to be in Congress. Mystified, Crockett responded that he could think of no bill that he had supported that violated the Constitution. Bunce reminded him that he had supported a bill that provided $20,000 to help people in Washington, D.C., who had lost their homes in a fire. Crockett acknowledged that he had supported the bill. He said that the Treasury was overflowing and that he felt that helping those struggling families was the right thing to do. Bunce pointed out that the Constitution doesn't authorize Congress to appropriate funds to help needy people. He said that Crockett and other members of Congress should have used their own personal funds to help out families. In other words, monies raised by taxes were, quote, not yours to give. It's the least I could do, the governor said. Crockett immediately recognized the validity of Bunce's point. He vowed never to do it again. Bunce said that if Crockett would tell people publicly that he was wrong to do it, he would not only vote for him again, he would try to get other people to vote for him as well. A week later, Bunce organized a campaign event for Crockett in which there were 1,000 people in attendance. Crockett publicly acknowledged the validity of Bunce's point and vowed never again to support a congressional appropriation to help out people in need. That essay had an enormous impact on my thinking. For one thing, it demonstrated the importance of adhering strictly to principle. If Bunce had instead said, I think the amount that you gave those families was excessive, the essay would have had no impact on me. It was because Bunce was unwavering in his commitment to principle that the essay impacted me so deeply. Another factor was Bunce's willingness to tell the truth about this sort of thing. He didn't mince words like everybody wants to nowadays. Well, yeah, you know, I didn't like it, but I didn't want to say anything, you know. Yeah. He was direct and unequivocal. It was clear to me that this is why the point that he was making was able to pierce Crockett's mindset and cause him to recognize immediately that what he had done was wrong. Quote, not yours to give demonstrates why it's imperative that we libertarians continue adhering strictly to principle and we continue speaking the truth about America's welfare state, which came into existence in the 1930s. Given that it's wrong for Congress to give taxpayers money to struggling families in Washington, it's equally wrong for Congress to give money to people for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education grants, food stamps, public housing, corporate bailouts, subsidies, and all of the other welfare state programs. And I come around once again to my fervent wish. What I'm looking for is an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law, providing basic government services on at least a break-even basis. That's enough. Not to be seen as the generous provender for all kinds of nice-to-haves.
Something for elected officials to do the least.
Exactly, yeah. So, of course, because the government has gotten into the giveaway business, it's really put private charities out of business. All of the stuff that, I'll take Social Security out of it because Social Security is, at least in theory, funded by the annuitants themselves. But the other programs, you know, charities now have the idea, well, why should we go out and bust ass and raise money and do all these wonderful things when the government is going to do it with taxpayers' money? So the government's basically killed private charities, which ought to be doing these things. And of course, once the government gets involved, once you start down the welfare state trail, you develop a national bureaucracy or a territorial bureaucracy to administer it. Those people are not going to want to see it go away.
There was kind of, and I don't want to call it a grassroots movement because it was just normal people during this shutdown where services were closed, government services closed. It was kind of living proof that the community can get together without the government and buy groceries for people. I'm not saying it solved problems because there's a lot of people that weren't able to talk to people or have errands run for them or things like that. But I remember going on social media and people were talking to each other about how we can help each other out, minus the government. I mean, it kind of proved to us that it's really not necessary for them to do all these services.
Absolutely.
Yet we have a governor that glutted the government with employees.
Yeah, and continually invents new things, brags about it, campaigns on it, but it's not hers to give. It just isn't hers to give. But here we are, and this morning, Jose, I went to vote. I think you've got a visual representation of my trip to the polls, right?
That's going to just give me a second here. Because it's always a second with technology. Let's see here.
Yeah, that's me and my child bride campaigning up at the Gigo polling place. Please vote for Tall Tales. And you don't have to wait for November 8th to vote for Tall Tales. You can do it every afternoon at 4 o'clock, right here on the Point, right? So I was up there. I got there about 9, stayed till around noon. Very small turnout. A small turnout favors the incumbent.
I went and took my wife this morning at 8 o'clock, and I was waiting for the crowds, waiting for the campaigners, and we were in and out in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It probably took longer to get ready.
Uh-huh. So a low turnout favors the incumbent, unfortunately, suggesting that perhaps people just aren't angry enough to turn the rascals out. Give them 4 more years.
Thank you, federal funds.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's take a look at the card. I've got starting out with CSC versus Tall Tales, Finogi versus Ken, Troy versus GMH, Censorship versus Free Speech, Vince Areola versus Frank Ishizaki, GFT versus the Hatch Act, and Chemical Abortion versus Guam. And, of course, we always start out with systemic racism. You know what that's about. The rice, according to the narrative, the rice is red. According to your eyeballs, the rice is orange. But woe be it to the person who says it's not red rice, it's orange rice, because he runs the risk of getting canceled, just like the Daily News canceled our friend Paul, always makes the sign of the Z, Zerzan. Okay, we go from there into the Public Law 3634 section of the agenda, and I've got, let's see, I think I've got 3 things on I want to read into the record here, starting out with the Alcohol Beverage Control Board. And the Alcohol Beverage Control Board has an 11-item agenda, number 8 of which is manager, assistant manager applications. A, new, renewal, tells you what they're going to be doing. Number 9, other discussions. Discussions about what?
Others.
Yeah, so you just screwed your whole agenda there, Alcohol Beverage Control Board, because you have to publish the agenda of your meeting, and it has to be in sufficient detail to put the reader on notice of what it is that's going to be discussed. Saying other discussions suggests anything that pops into anybody's head.
There's going to be a lot of paranoid people there. I heard you're going to hear talk about me.
Yeah, other discussions. And then we have the Visitors Bureau that always makes the same mistake. Item number 4, old business. Item number 5, new business. You know what the old business is, Jose?
Nope.
Neither do I. You want to know what the new business is?
I don't know.
Yeah, so do I, because they don't tell you. That screws up the whole thing. Then we have the retirement fund. And the retirement fund is having a meeting at November 10. It's divided into 2 sections, the defined contribution section and the defined benefit section. And the agendas are done exactly right. This is Paula Bloss, who runs the retirement fund. If we could reorganize the government so that Paula Bloss and Maria Pangilinan could run the whole thing, we'd be so much better off, because these guys, they do it right. They don't just slop through it like the Visitors Bureau and the Alcohol Beverage Control Board, et cetera, and so many of these other agencies. Okay, we go on next to Civil Service Commission versus Tall Tales. Now, this one goes back a long time, and I'll bring you up to date. A gentleman named Roy Gamboa was working for the lieutenant governor in the federal programs office down in Adelup. Roy Gamboa filed his papers and became a candidate for the legislature. Even though he was a candidate, he stayed on the job for 2 weeks. The newspapers published a story about it and told us that, according to Stephanie Flores, when Gamboa turned in his papers, she said, "Can't you stay on for a little while to help with the transition?" So he broke the Hatch Act. He broke the law. I found out about this. I sent a sunshine to the lieutenant governor, said, "Send me all the public records that show that you reported Roy Gamboa's violation of the Hatch Act to the Civil Service Commission." Came back, no public records. They didn't do anything about it. I sent the whole package off to the Civil Service Commission saying, "Please take appropriate action." The appropriate action then was to set up a case, CSC versus Roy Gamboa. Priscilla Tuncap, who says Gamboa is anti, DQ'd herself. First time around, no quorum. It bumped over a couple more times. It was supposed to have been heard on the 3rd of November, but the Civil Service Commission admitted, "Oh, we forgot to send out the notices." So now it's going to be on November 8th. I got this email this morning at 8:34. Half a day. We apologize that the political activity investigation hearing is canceled today due to no quorum. Notices for rescheduling will be forthcoming. We apologize for any inconvenience. Have a great day. Vicki Lynn Sablon. So, they're just dragging their feet along on this thing.
So this is the second time they have no quorum?
Yeah.
It's time to look for a new commission.
Exactly. There are 6 members. One of them called in sick, one recused. The other one was off island. So, and then when the matter did come on for a hearing, Jeffrey Moots from the governor's office showed up and said, "You guys styled the case wrong. You set it up wrong. It was styled as the Civil Service Commission versus the Federal Programs Office." Moot said, "You can't do that. You can't, a government agency can't violate the Hatch Act. It has to be the employee." And he threw Stephanie Flores under the bus. Stephanie Flores' name has disappeared now. The Civil Service, the report that the faceless bureaucrats in the back room at the Civil Service Commission came up with said, "Well, Gamboa doesn't work for the government anymore. Nothing we could do." It said nothing about Flores. So I suspect that when they finally get around to deciding formally that they can't do anything with Gamboa, I got to go back and say, "Yeah, okay, you want to finish your job and take on Stephanie Flores, because she is actually more culpable than Gamboa." You can't discuss Flores and Gamboa and what Gamboa did without using the word conspiracy. Flores and Gamboa conspired to violate the so-called Mini-Hatch Act. So that's where we are with that. Now, I don't carry any brief for the Civil Service Commission at all. We saw what happened at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, where the HR man was selling tickets to Lulan Guerrero's fundraiser, was passing out tickets, and the staff said, "Well, let him go because he didn't know." Yeah, that's invincible ignorance. You've heard that one before, Jose.
Only at the CSC.
Yeah. Invincible ignorance. All right, let's take a short break and we'll come back to Fanobi versus Ken.
All too often, governments do too little in some areas, but too much in others. Felix and I want government to provide basic services and stay out of people's lives. Government overreach will not happen during our administration. The Camacho Ada team believes in 3 co-equal branches of government, not having one exert power over the others. For more information on our plans for government services, Visit CamachoAdaforGuam.com. This will be a new season.
I'm Felix Camacho.
I'm Tony Ada.
We approve this message.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, next item on the card here is Finogi versus Ken. And this is an article I found in the Post. Candidates respond to Finogi Coalition survey on key issues. 19 candidates vying for an elected office in today's general election responded to a survey from the Finogi Coalition, an organization made up of more than 30 community groups. Its general elections candidate survey posed 3 questions to candidates. Do you support Chamorro self-determination? Do you support the changing of Guam's political status? What is your stance on the U.S. military buildup to Guam? Pretty easy to see what the answers ought to be here, right? The candidates who responded are as follows. Bistra, Sarah Netiduk, Judy Wantpat-Tin, Kelly Marsh Titano, Ken Longuero, Fred Berdallo, Jesse Lujan, Jose Pido Terlahi, Angela Santos, Sabina Barris, Levin Camacho, James Moylan, Ian Catling, Tello Taitagui, Michelle Titano, Will Parkinson, Jonathan Savaris, Therese Tetlahi, and Chris Barnett, Finogi told the Daily Post. On the issue of Chamorro self-determination, the coalition explained that it is addressing a historical wrong through a symbolic act of restorative justice. That's enough to make me run for cover. A historical wrong through a symbolic act of restorative justice. Restorative justice usually means dig in your pocket, get your checkbook out and write a check, right? It gives those who have long been denied the chance to voice what they would prefer for their political future the opportunity to do so. And you can't say things like that. According to the survey results, 17 of 20 candidates indicated strong support for the right of the Chamorro people to hold a plebiscite in which they can express their preference for the political future of Guam. Leon Guerrero and Moylan do not support. Now, here it goes. This is a direct quote, apparently from Finogi. Leon Guerrero and Moylan do not support, quote, the inalienable rights of the Chamorro people. Yeah, now let's stop and examine that. Inalienable rights. That sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Where have I heard that before, Jose? Let me check here.
Just a little mood music.
Yeah. Yeah. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain, they say unalienable, they mean inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a direct Declaration of Independence. So that is an extremely important part of the Declaration of Independence. Get out your history books here, because you'll recall that up until the Declaration of Independence and the beginning of the American Republic, kings, royalty ruled under what was called the divine right of kings. And the British seal has a motto in French, Le roi et mon Dieu. You know, the king and God, right? So the idea was that kings were kings because it was the will of God. And since it came straight from God, other folks really shouldn't bitch about it. It was just the way things were, and that was the right way. Well, when the Declaration of Independence came along, that one phrase, that people are endowed with inalienable rights, that's important, but the real important part is by their Creator, by God. And that's what set the United States apart from every other country on the face of the earth at that time. So we see a little bit of copycating here. The inalienable rights of the Chamorro people. Now, what is the source of that right? Does it come from God?
I don't know.
Does it come from Robert Underwood?
Don't know.
Probably Hope Cristobal.
Hope not.
Yeah, because Hope Cristobal, she wrote the Decolonization Commission law, Carajo. So that's a pretty big mouthful, the inalienable rights of the Chamorro people. Now, if you acquiesce to that, you reach one set of answers. If you do the same thing that I do, which is to say, what is the source of this right? Then you may very well reach another set of answers. And that's where I come from. I want to know the source of the inalienable right of the Chamorro people to have this plebiscite. Because I am unaware of the source of that right. Okay, one respondent, Mendiola, said she has more research to do on the topic. Bad answer. Yeah. But I'll give it to Ken and Doug. You know, they say, no, they don't support. And then, of course, it's a loaded question. It's not that they don't support Chamorro self-determination. It's that they do not support the inalienable rights of Chamorro people. Now, this was right after they said to Ken, how long ago did you stop beating your wife? This is called begging the question. You know, stating a fact that causes people to be curious and to want answers is not begging the question. Begging the question is including something in the question that must be assumed as correct in order to answer the question. So, like, are you still beating your wife? Well, suppose that the answeree never beat his wife. Well, no, I'm not. So, oh, I see, but you used to. No, I never did. Then why did you say you used to? So a nice loaded question there. And then another quote, it's our hope that elected leaders engage seriously in Guahan's decolonization, the coalition said of the results. And I wrote a column for the Guam Daily Post titled, Who's Decolonizing Guam? Answer, nobody. Because the so-called Commission on Decolonization is not trying to decolonize the island of Guam, not trying to decolonize the territory of Guam. They're concentrated on identity politics, the decolonization of the, quote, Chamorro people. So let's say that the Chamorro people all decide we want the island of Guam to be independent. That's it, right? Because it's decolonization. What about the rest of us folks that live here? Chopped liver? In regard to Guam's political status, 19 of 20 candidates expressed their support to change to something other than a non-self-governing territory. It takes one guy, right? Most expressed differing opinions on what the status should be, however. Some supported greater independence. Others felt Guam should become closer to the U.S. Some expressed a hope that whatever future status we achieve would allow Guam and the CNMI to become unified. Leon Guerrero responded negatively, according to the group. Needless to say, it would be negative, right? The Republican senatorial candidate advocated for the territory to continue in its current status as an unincorporated territory, the group said. Whoa! What kind of decolonization is that? Now, as Professor Ron McNinch of the university pointed out yesterday, there are actually 4 options, according to the United Nations, a group I have about as much respect for as I have for the Finogi Coalition. And that is that the 4th one is any status fairly agreeable and adopted by the people of the colony through suffrage. So if the people here said, yeah, if a majority of them said, yeah, we like it the way it is, that would be decolonization, according to McNinch. Not according to these guys. Because these guys are poorly camouflaged separatists. They want Guam to be an independent country.
I hope whoever the source is of these unalienable rights allows the right to freely choose status quo.
I don't think so.
But I don't think so.
No, you can choose among the 3 that the Manakilu have provided for you, but you can't make any other choice than that.
Your test today is an essay question. We're giving you multiple choice answers.
Yeah, right. Okay, Leon Guerrero responded negatively, according to the group. The Republican senatorial candidate advocated for the territory to continue its current status as an unincorporated territory. And let's once again see what we've got. We've got a situation where all of the federal income taxes paid on the island stay right here, and we get to squander the taxes ourselves. We get the taxes paid by military folks stationed here on the island, the so-called Section 30 money. We get all of the fees, et cetera, that are paid for any federal fees. For instance, when you renew your passport, that money doesn't go to the U.S. Treasury. It goes right here. We are not part of the customs territory of the United States. Therefore, when we import things to the island, there are no U.S. customs duties on what we import, unlike Hawaii or California or whatever. We have our own customs and quarantine folks instead of having the feds do it. We have one of the greatest tax shelters under the American flag, where if a business has an idea to start a business on Guam, we can do a tax forgiveness chit for that business where they don't have to pay income, property, or gross receipts tax for as long as 20 years. No other state has anything like this. We have a delegate to the United States Congress who has an office in the Rayburn building, just like every other congressman. Same size staff, same travel allowances, same ability to stand up and speak on the floor of the House, the ability to be member of committees of the House, even to be the vice chair of the Finance Committee, and has almost the full kit of what a congressman would have. Can't vote. He cannot vote. But when you look at the congressman from Wyoming, there's one of them, and the delegate from Guam, there isn't a whole lot to distinguish them. So we've really got a nice deal here. If we were an independent country, we would for sure, we would be admitted to the United Nations and we'd be on the Security Council, right along with Russia, China, England, and France and the United States. No, we would be this little penny ante backwater island in the Western Pacific that in accordance with its own devices would soon be bankrupt, would be broke. If you look at who the leaders are going to be, you want to have an independent government run by Michael Bavacqua, Hope Cristobal, the usual suspects. I don't think so.
And the reason why you can opine on that or assume that is because we have not been given any kind of structure or any kind of
exactly
method of government.
Yeah, none of the separatists have said, this is what we have in mind. You know, ordinarily what you do, if you want independence, you set up what's called a shadow government. These are not people that hold official positions, but they hold the positions that they would hold in the independent state. And they do they do decrees and et cetera, and they show you what you get. All we know is that we would get a huge dose of grievance politics, like Hope Cristobal yesterday. He is a white man who have come to here because the systems of colonialism. He has no right here. He's ti tau tau tano gwe. Wahoo tau tau tano. That's what it would turn out to be. Yeah. When it comes to military buildup, the coalition reported most candidates favored support for the buildup, although emphasized that it cannot come at cost to our environment, our resources, and our historical cultural sites, which means you're against it. You know, all of these are just pretexts that come across a little bit more palatable and saying, we don't need no stinking military here. Get out of here. It's much more palatable for them to come out and say, you know, the Nelsoni tree up in there, you know, we're going to lose that tree because of the machine gun range. And of course, we know that there's a lot of sacred land involved here. Jose, you know how you know which land on our island is sacred to the Chamorro people?
The military are on it.
The land that the military has title to, yeah. Other than that, you know, you can raise Tongan on it. You can make it a graveyard for dead cars. It doesn't matter. So, once again, kudos to Ken and Jim Moylan for standing up and bucking the traces here, doing what's not politically correct. Let's take a short break.
Buenas, Tanhafade. Guahu si Luleong Guerrero, malalagudzu talu pa gobyerno. Zaho mas mona para tanat lamolik inilatlata. Malagudzu para bil hatsain rebun espitata, para tanat lamolik isquilata, dan para tanat lasabi I familiata, I businesta, dan italanta mona. Estima mailana November 8, por favor, botaha mensagers. The malagudzu gini imastadum ikrosono na yamzun donku na sidzu usmasi ni support pinitzu the mala tafandanya para tanat lamulik ni la tamona para ifamilata para ifamagoonta dan ifamagoonia sidzu usmasi.
I'm Luleong Guerrero and I approve this message.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mix Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show,
Still running away.
Kimmy A. Minor, Lico Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Soldiers. Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
Today, I'm Senator Chris Duenas. We've gone from a viral pandemic to a drug epidemic. It is time to stand up the multi-agency unified law enforcement group to stem the flow of drugs and combat crime with force. Maulik is not just another task force, it is a program focused on stopping the distribution of meth and opioids, as well as placing enough police officers patrolling our streets. It is time to make Guam Maulik again.
Re-elect Senator Chris Dueñas. The fight continues.
I am Chris Dueñas, and I approve this message.
Okay, here we go. We got about 7 minutes more until the big halftime show. I got Repeat on the phone. You know, Jose, I voted this morning, and I voted in the Attorney General race, but I didn't see Repeat's name on the ballot. So I voted for Doug Moylan. What do you think of that?
Don't say that twice.
He whose name shall not be repeated.
Yeah. So what can you tell me about campaign ads, Repeat?
Well, I just wanted to talk about the governor's campaign ad in Chamorro. She needs to fire her I don't know if you call it a speechwriter or the transcript. That ad had so many errors in it in Chamorro.
She should
have ran it by you.
Yeah.
That's really all I wanted to say is that, you know, if you're going to put out an ad in Chamorro because you want to target the Chamorro speakers, then you ought to make it correct.
Makes a lot of sense, Repeat.
All right.
Thanks for calling.
That's a violation of the Mini Hack Act.
Exactly.
I do that a lot with my Chamorro.
I would like to stick up for Governor Leon Guerrero, but Okay, next on the card here, we've got Vince Areola versus Frank Ishizaki. And Vince Areola is kind of doing a Joey Dueñas, if you remember. Joey Dueñas is now a verb. When someone writes a column that you dislike, you come back with both guns blazing. It's called Joey Dueñasing. So Vince Areola is Joey Dueñasing Frank Ishizaki, and here's what he said. I read a column from Frank Ishizaki pointing out, among other things, supposed flaws in the Department of Public Works road paving projects. It's disappointing that, as a trained investigator, Ishizaki did not go straight to the source. Even a simple phone call would have provided him with, if you can get somebody to answer the phone.
Reach out.
Yeah, you know about that intersection down at Chalon Laguna and Marine Corps Drive, Jose? Lake Areola.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I tried to call Frank. Can't get him on the phone, so I wrote that letter, which I read over the air. And about a week ago, they came and dumped some cold mix in there, a mixture of small stones and bitumen, right? And raised the level of the road maybe 6 inches. And the potholes recovered in about 48 hours. But because the road is now higher, the potholes are deeper.
It's now Areola Gorge.
Yeah. So I've got to amend my suggestion to Frank and suggest that in addition, I offered 4 suggestions. 1, a really, really deep French drain. 2, pavement and drainage, draining that corner. 3, a bridge across Lake Areola, or for a ferry boat concession across Lake Areola. But I said he might have trouble with the Coast Guard because they're liable to determine that Lake Areola is navigable waters. So then he comes along with that bitumen. So now my latest suggestion is he needs to put a sign on the edge of Lake Areola that said 4-wheel drive vehicles only. Otherwise, we're going to lose, one of those little key cars, those little Japanese cars. All that's going to be sticking out is going to be the top of the radio antenna when one of those guys tried to make a right turn there.
They're passing out periscopes.
Yeah. Even a simple phone call would have provided him with better information to formulate his opinion. It's unfortunate that a few days before the election, ill-informed opinions are elevated to the public at the expense of the hard-working public servants and industry specialists doing the actual back-breaking work. If Ishizaki had properly investigated this issue, he'd know that DPW has delivered multiple safe and high-quality road improvement projects in the past 4 years. DPW identified and resolved payment issues on 2 major intersections with new tested and proven pavement mix designs, like the one up at Chalon-Lahuna. We have increased visibility with fresh striping and pavement markers, identified areas in need of pavement repair, worked with utility companies to improve the impact of their manholes. Now listen to this. Worked with utility companies to improve the impact of their manholes on drivers and vehicles. I think the manholes already have enough impact. We don't need more impact. You know, where you got to drive down the street, swerve around the manholes because they stick up 2 or 3 inches above the pavement, or else they're 2 or 3 inches below the level of the pavement. Yeah. Let's see, he also says we have installed a system of Jersey bounces in front of Jerry Kitchen. No. We have accomplished all this under intense scrutiny of highly qualified construction superintendents, construction management inspectors, owner's engineers, and project managers. All right, let's break for the big halftime show, and we'll come back here to Lake Areola.
Aganya, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The midterm campaigning comes to an end. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Biden returning to the White House Monday evening, saying he's optimistic, but admitted Tuesday will be a fight for congressional Democrats.
I think it's going to be tough, but I think we can. I think we'll win the Senate. I think the House is tougher.
At a Democrats candidate rally at Maryland's Bowie State University Monday evening, the president claimed that our democracy is at risk and that Republicans would try and gut many of his programs.
Tax credits for lower energy costs, gone. 15% corporate tax, minimum tax, gone. The $800 savings for health premiums we got through the Affordable Care Act, gone.
Former President Trump campaigning outside of Dayton, Ohio last evening for Senate candidate J.D. Vance, predicting the GOP will regain control of both the House and the Senate, and he teased his future political plans.
I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th, at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida.
Many pundits believe Mr. Trump will announce at that time his plans to run for a second term in the White House. In the hotly contested Pennsylvania Senate race, Democrat John Fetterman's campaign now asking a federal court to order that mail-in ballots be counted even if they are misdated or undated. Pennsylvania's Supreme Court last week ordered those ballots not be counted. A state judge in Arizona has told Cochise County it cannot count all of its ballots by hand, a step the county elections board had been planning to take over claims of voting machine irregularities. The winning numbers in the $1.9 billion Powerball jackpot haven't been drawn yet. The drawing Monday evening delayed for more than 3 hours so far because one of the participating lotteries hasn't been able to complete the processing of its sales. The Iowa State Lottery, which manages Powerball, says the drawing will be performed when the required security protocols are completed. America is listening to Fox News.
Who's better in a crisis? Let's look at the facts.
COVID surpassed the Spanish flu of 1918 as the deadliest virus in the world. More than 400 souls lost their lives on Guam. Lou and Josh knew decisive action was the key to save lives. They pulled together doctors and experts, launching one of the best response plans in the nation. Guam's vaccination rate, 98%, better than any state. Pausing large gatherings and mandating masks during the deadliest strains potentially saved 2,500 lives. Emergency powers allowed the quick stand-up of quarantines and access to federal dollars. They built an unemployment program in mere weeks, sending $900 million to those who lost jobs. Another $290 million went to Guam businesses. Now the masks are off and recovery is well underway. When it comes to a crisis, you know you can trust Lou and Josh to keep us moving forward.
This is Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, and I approve this message.
A Russian businessman with Kremlin connections admits to meddling in U.S. elections.
After denying allegations for years, Yevgeny Prigozhin admitted to meddling in U.S. elections and has no plans to stop. The catering company owner, known as Putin's chef, boasting in a social media post he will continue interfering carefully, precisely, and surgically. State Department spokesman Ned Price.
His bold confession, if anything, appears to be just a manifestation of the impunity that crooks and cronies enjoy under President Putin.
The U.S. charged Prigozhin and other Russians in 2018 with operating a covert social media campaign to sow distrust and divide public opinion ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Hurricane watches have been posted for the northwestern Bahamas and Florida's Atlantic coast as subtropical storm Nicole approaches, threatening to bring what the National Hurricane Center calls a prolonged period of hazardous weather. Forecasters now expecting Nicole to reach hurricane strength by Wednesday night, ahead of a projected landfall in southeast Florida on Thursday. The Supreme Court's newest justice has issued her first opinion, a dissent in a death penalty case.
In a short dissent, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson says she would have tossed out lower court rulings and ordered a new look at the case of Deval Chin, an Ohio death row inmate. Chin's attorneys say the state suppressed evidence that could have changed the outcome at the trial. Justice Sonia Sotomayor joined Jackson's dissent. The court has not yet issued any rulings from cases argued in October. It's likely Jackson will write at least one majority opinion from those cases. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Some evacuation orders have been lifted on Colonel's Island, Georgia, where firefighters report they've extinguished most of a huge fire in a chemical plant. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Of a day, I'm Senator Chris Dueñas. We've gone from a viral pandemic to a drug epidemic. It is time to stand up the multi-agency unified law enforcement group to stem the flow of drugs and combat crime with force. Maulik is not just another task force, it is a program focused on stopping the distribution of meth and opioids, as well as placing enough police officers patrolling our streets. It is time to make Guam Maulik again.
Re-elect Senator Chris Dueñas. The fight continues.
I am Chris Dueñas, and I approve this message.
Check out the newest hydro and garden center to hit Guam, Crop King Hydro. We have a huge selection of plant nutrients, soils, hydroponic mediums, organic pest control pumps, plant support, tools, and so much more. Call 635-4769. 635-GROW. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Dededo Satina Mall, right across from Payless and Paradise Fitness. For whatever you grow, think Crop King Hydro. Crop King Hydro.
Buenas and half a day. Guahu si Lou Leon Guerrero, malalagudzu talu pa gobyerno. Zaho mas mona para tanat lamolik inilatlata. Malagudzu para bel hatsain rebu nispitata, para tanat lamolik iskwilata, dan para tanat lasatbi I familiata, I bisnesta, dan italanta mona. Estima Mailana November 8, por favor, bota mensagens. Zamalagudzu gini imastadong ikrasonu na yamzun donkru na sidzu usmasi ni support tinmizu zamala tafandanya para tanat lamulik ni lata mona para ifamilata para ifamagoonta dan ifamagoonia sidzu usmasi.
I'm Lou Leon Guerrero, and I approve this message.
So here we are, another big halftime show put together by Jose. Great job, Jose. Jose, can you take a minute to explain to folks how they can get on the Rogues Gallery for Tall Tales?
Absolutely. First, they must point their browser to thepoint.gu, go to the link for the t-shirt with the beard and the t-shirt. The link for the t-shirt's there. Order your shirt, wait for it, open the package up, put it on, take a selfie, and send that selfie to the Points WhatsApp number at 671-797-8255. And you, too, could be a part of the Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, man, you could be famous just by doing that, yeah. Think of the bragging rights that you can obtain with your friends. Hey, you want to see me on screen? And watch this, yeah. And you'd be supporting the show also, you know. I went into this whole T-shirt enterprise here, not to make money, but to promote the show, to get the good word of Tall Tales out to the international radio listening audience, everybody here on the island, so that when people see you wearing your Tall Tales T-shirt and confessing to being a tailgater, they'll say, what's that all about? And you can explain it to them. You can really help out a lot. Okay, so we'll be doing the Rogues Gallery here. We hope to keep adding to it every day. I noticed that there's a gentleman with a couple of his relatives pointing to his shirt. Do you know, did you tell me who that was, Jose?
That was A.K.A. Sam. He just came back on a flight. I mistook him for a pilot.
Yeah.
Because he said, I just came back from, I don't know where he was, and boy, my arm's tired. But he was able to get the crew to take a picture, and I think they are fans now.
All right, good deal. All right, I'm going back here to Frank Areola and his Joey Duenas-ing of Frank Ishizaki, picking up in the article. Frank goes on to say, we accomplished all this under intense scrutiny of highly qualified construction superintendents, construction management inspectors, owners, engineers, and project managers. If Ishizaki had even tried to inquire, he'd know that in the past 2 years, DPW has successfully awarded multiple road improvement contracts despite the strain of the military buildup has put on the island's construction resources. This was no easy feat. Many of these projects are highly complex and involve substantial coordination between the governor's office, DPW, the Federal Highway Administration, contractors, construction management consultants, and other stakeholders such as the Department of Defense and affected utility companies. If Ishizaki had really examined this issue, he'd know that DPW strictly observes the FHWA regulations for each of the federally funded road improvement projects. These federal regulations are intricate and require adherence to contract specs that have grown increasingly complex over time. We are not eyeballing the sufficiency of these projects. Quality control requires management and inspection by specialized consultants with requisite knowledge of and experience with applicable federal regulations. Mismanagement impacts our funding as well as the quality of our roads. For these reasons, our standards simply cannot be compromised, except at the intersection of Chalon-Lahona and Marine Corps Drive. If Ishizaki had done his research, he'd know that this past week, DPW contractor Infratech International LLC completed construction of the temporary bypass road on Route 5 that is a necessary and substantial undertaking before the contractor can move forward with reconstruction and widening of the main road. Route 5 is clearly one of the worst roads on the island and has not improved probably for over 40 years. The same can be said about the recently completed Marine Drive section. Where's Marine Drive? Section and ongoing reconstruction projects including Route 28, East Sengsong, Route 14B, Ipaw Road, and Route 14, Chalon at San Antonio. These projects did not happen overnight. They required planning. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback on complex construction projects when you have no experience in this type of complex. So there you have it. So what was this? What was Frank Ariola's letter about? Was it about highway construction on Guam or the shortcomings of Frank Ishizaki? Now the message is clear here, and that is if you would criticize anything that the Department of Public Works does, you better stand by, because you too could be Joey Duenas. I understand, the back and forth here, but I don't know that it becomes a public official to come forward with personal criticisms like that. You could set the record straight without saying, it is disappointing that as a trained investigator, Ishizaki did not go straight to the source.
That's ad hominem to I guess Ishizaki now is a private citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is weird.
Yeah. If Ishizaki had done his research and so on. So he could have made all of his points here without this, and you have to use the word attack on Ishizaki. And to me, it would have been more credible and it would have been more readable. I don't carry any brief for Frank Ishizaki either, but I just don't think that it lies within the mouth of a public official to, for slight cause, take on a private citizen who happens to criticize the public official, especially when the public official can command 4 pages here in rebuttal. Yeah, it just doesn't seem right to me. Okay.
That's a really bad policy, because that it's not an infringement of the First Amendment, but it has twinges of trying to hamper speech by a government official coming out personally against somebody who make the complaint.
You need to use the word chilling effect.
Chilling it, there you go.
Yeah, so when a citizen criticizes a government official, and the government official in the majesty of his title comes back, not just to set the record straight, but to beat up on the critic, because and that's what Frank did here. He criticized Ishizaki for criticizing him.
Should we be prepared?
Yeah, because had Ishizaki done what he should have done, there wouldn't have been any criticism necessary. So that, that certainly has a chilling effect on, and we don't need that. People are already too shy when it comes to criticizing the government when criticism is warranted, and when so often only public criticism can change the result of government operations. Okay, next item I've got is chemical abortion versus Guam. This is an article by Rebecca Downs in Town Hall. And I've titled it Chemical Abortion versus Guam, because our Attorney General is fighting the whole chemical abortion thing right now. And if I were in fact, I might even draft such a bill, I would outlaw chemical abortion. Abortion is abortion, but this is just poison. It's 2 drugs. The first drug kills the baby inside the mother. So the mother stumbles around for 2 days with a dead body inside her body, a dead baby inside her body. And then the second drug causes that dead baby to be expelled, along with a lot of blood, a lot of hemorrhaging.
Massive hemorrhaging.
Massive hemorrhaging. It's just so barbaric. So this article is entitled, Who Could Have Guessed? Dangerous Chemical Abortion Bills Being Handed Out Despite Regulations. Last December, the Biden administration's Food and Drug Administration relaxed safety regulations that allowed for dangerous chemical abortion pills to be made available online and by mail without an in-person visit. Now, we had the in-person visit in our statute, and you'll recall that Jane Flores and our governor coaxed Redu and Kaneshiro, two abortionists from Hawaii, to come out here, get licensed to practice medicine here, then become plaintiffs in the ACLU suit to enjoin the personal visit aspect of our law. That case now pens before the Ninth Circuit. And of course, classic Lulian Guerrero, you know, we need abortion. Okay, going on with this article. This is despite how data shows such a method was much more dangerous than surgical abortions. It was also revealed that FDA relied on incomplete data when making the decisions. It's sadly not surprising then how women and even providers have been going about getting these pills has been further distorted since then. Last week, a pollster named 538 provided coverage for Aid Access, a Dutch international group that sends over chemical abortion pills where it's illegal. So if you're living in, say, Missouri and it's illegal, you can get them sent to you from Holland, Netherlands. Such coverage acknowledges that, quote, aid access occupies a kind of legal gray area, but mentions the group claims to follow the law. When it comes to laws against this method, it's also mentioned that, quote, these laws are difficult to enforce and individuals are rarely prosecuted. So what they're saying is, yeah, this is probably against the law, but your chances of getting caught are somewhere between slim and none, so give it a shot. Essentially creating a legal loophole for groups like Aid Access and the people who use their services. While the piece includes the pro-abortion argument that pro-life laws don't change the supposed need for abortion, it doesn't include any pro-life counter-arguments. There's also no mention of the dangerous side effects of such a method. In fact, the coverage promotes the method by using one-sided information that claims this method is, quote, effective and low risk. At one point, such coverage even seemingly promotes illegal abortions. Medication abortion isn't just used for legal abortions, though it's also a safe, hard-to-detect way to terminate a pregnancy outside the medical and legal system. In the era before Roe v. Wade, various methods of self-induced abortion often resulted in infection or other serious health problems. Now, though, it's relatively easy for people to order abortion pills over the internet from services like Aid Access. Not mentioned in this piece is a study from the Charlotte Lozier Institute, which found that visits to the emergency room following chemical abortion increased by 507% from 2002 to 2015. It's worth noting that the FDA extended when the method was approved for 2016 from 7 weeks to 10 weeks. So up to 10 weeks of pregnancy, you can use the pills. The Charlotte Lozier Institute is a project of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, which weighed in on this dangerous method in a statement for Town Hall. As SBA Pro-Life America State Policy Director Katie Glenn mentioned, chemical abortion has significantly higher complication rates than other methods, and these increase with each week of gestation. Some studies have found 10% of women face incomplete abortions at 9 weeks gestation. This can lead to death from infection if remaining fetal parts or tissue are not properly removed. This method carries with it 4 times the complication of surgical abortions. Side effects and risks include abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, weakness, fever, chills, and headaches. The bleeding may last for weeks after the abortion. Quote, we have to recognize this for what it is. International companies are profiting off the death of children in the womb and are putting vulnerable women at risk in the process. This dangerous market is the next frontier of the abortion landscape, and pro-lifers everywhere must take note, said Chelsea Uman, the National Legislative Advisor for Human Coalition Action, said in a statement for Town Hall. In mentioning these high risks highlighted above, she also warned that women can order the pill online without consulting their own doctor at all, opening themselves up to dangerous risks such as hemorrhaging, adding women and children deserve better. Students for Life America also has a website called This is Chemical Abortion, which details the procedure, including how a woman gives birth to a dead unborn child at home without medical supervision. The abortion industry has been outraged that death by abortion may be less profitable as fewer people get an abortion surgery post Roe's end. It's cutting into their profits, Jose. Their backup plan was reckless distribution of chemical abortion pills. Christy Hamrick, SFLA's chief media and policy strategist, said in a statement for Town Hall. Again, none of this is acknowledged by 538. The site has been promoting the supposed importance of the abortion issue in the midterm elections and continues to do so. Not only is this dangerous method likely being provided for illegally, but some abortionists are going rogue and providing them before a woman is even pregnant. According to a recent headline from Political, the FDA is concerned about the advanced prescribing of mifepristone for this use, an FDA spokesman granted, that's the one that kills the baby, granted anonymity to describe sensitive agency policies, told Political. Mifepristone is not approved for advanced provision of medical abortion. It's good to see the FDA break from the Biden administration and push back against abortion extremists. The so-called advanced prescribing of dangerous abortion drugs to women or men who are not pregnant and may give, sell, or slip the pills to someone else. She also called on the FDA to do more. The FDA knows these are dangerous drugs, which is why they have kept some safeguards in place for over 2 decades, including that women be screened for contradictions like ectopic pregnancy, that they only be taken in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. The FDA should exercise its enforcement authority to penalize any provider who's violating its rules and placing women in harm's way. Let's make for a 7th inning stretch, and I'll come back to this.
The Camacho Ada approach to reviving Guam's economy stands on our 7 pillars of opportunity. Business development is central to our platform. Tony and I are both businessmen who know the role that government should play in encouraging and supporting economic growth. For more information on how we will help our economy rebuild and prosper, please visit CamachoAdaforGuam.com. Taking care of business and opportunity, this will be a new season. I'm Felix Camacho.
I'm Tony Ada.
We approve this message.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
So back to this article here. Women deserve better than being left alone without any medical or emotional support as they bleed out. This is not medicine. It's ideologically driven abortion on demand. And of course, that's exactly what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with anything but an ideology founded in this grievance politics of man versus female, if you can find either one anymore. Hamrick wasn't very sympathetic to the FDA, as she also said in her statement that dangerous online, no-test chemical abortion sales are what the FDA set up, and getting rid of the health and safety standards that protected women, not the preborn, from abortion pills that have a higher rate of injury and death than surgical abortion. Now Biden's FDA wonders if things are getting out of hand as deadly drugs are stockpiled and handed out without concern for women. The FDA is reaping the whirlwind of their own bad decisions that prioritized a quick abortion sale over women's health and safety. Even if you support abortion, and I don't, that's no argument for the negligent way the FDA has handled the distribution of chemical abortion pills. Aid access is also referenced in this piece for engaging in such a dangerous practice. Okay, then the FDA spokesperson told Politico that if mifepristone, which stops the flow of hormones supporting the fetus in the uterus, were described before a patient is pregnant, providers wouldn't be able to properly oversee care to ensure its safety and effectiveness. Abortion medication is regulated more tightly by the FDA than other drugs, restricting how the regimen can be prescribed. Some telemedicine providers, including Chua, as well as in-person providers, have begun offering the pills before pregnancy as a way to expand access to abortion after the Supreme Court's June decision that gave states the right to ban the procedure. Netherlands-based Aid Access has been doing this since last fall, when Texas 6 weeks abortion ban took effect. Advocates of advanced provision say it enables patients fearful of losing access to abortion because of the court decision to be prepared in case they need to have an abortion at a later date and that it's safe and effective. Choi CEO Cindy Adam pushed back against the FDA in a statement to Politico, saying that restrictions on medication abortion are unnecessary and that the regime is safe. Choi offers ongoing supportive care throughout the process. For whatever reason, this information was left out of the 538 piece. Okay, so there's more here, Politico kind of beating its own drum, but the bottom line here is that we don't need no stinking chemical abortion. Stop to think about it. You know, exactly, you scrape the paint and varnish off it. That's what you have. You have a woman who is pregnant. We all know how that happens, right? It happens to a lot of women. It happened to my mother, as a matter of fact. The woman decides that she doesn't want to carry that baby to term. So she takes a pill. The effect of the pill is to cut off the flow of nutrients to the baby inside the mother's body, killing that baby. The mother then has a dead baby inside her body. She waits a couple days after she takes the first pill. Then she takes the second pill, which causes her body to expel the dead baby along with a lot of blood, hemorrhaging, etc. Amy Johnson, who was the protagonist in the movie Unplanned, went to some detail in that movie as to what it involved. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I wouldn't want that to happen to any woman.
And it's happened here a couple of times on Guam. The reporting of abortion has indicated that chemical abortions are occurring, and there has been at least 2 or 3 times where Dr. Shea has had to intervene because a patient came into his clinic hemorrhaging because of these chemical abortions.
Yeah, it's just, it's cruel, it's barbaric, it's sadistic. There's just nothing good about it, nothing to recommend it at all. But as I mentioned before I got into this article, our governor, Lulian Guerrero, and her henchman, Calamity Jane Flores, were able to get 2 abortionists from Hawaii, Kaneshiro and Redu, to come out here, get licensed to practice medicine on the island, allowing them to have standing to file suit, join the ACLU suit against public officials here to ban, to enjoin the in-person requirement for the prescription of these chemical abortion pills. Judge Francis Gatewood granted the injunction. The matter is now on appeal before the Ninth Circuit. One would think that given the Dobbs decision, the injunction is going to be dissolved, but I certainly hope so, because as I said, I wouldn't want to see this happen to any woman under any circumstances. It's just a horrible thing. I hate to have that image in my head. It's just so gross.
I just want to make a clarity that Dr. Shea took over the care of this patient. He does not endorse these pills. He'll never do abortions. He's stated that fact.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, the patient had to go to him because the person who gave the pill wasn't on island or either was qualified to care for a hemorrhaging patient.
There you go. Yeah, it all kind of fits together, doesn't it? I was going to talk about the GFT and the Hatch Act, but I don't have my papers here with me. Oh, wait a minute. I've got another one here that I never got to. Censorship versus free speech. I don't think I did that one. Amy Coney Barrett, Yeah, okay, good. Just about ran out of things to talk about here because I didn't bring that article with me. Okay, this is from my buddy Jonathan Turley. Below is my column this week on the campaign to block the publication of a book by Justice Amy Coney Barrett. It's all part of a movement of censorship and speech intolerance that has swept across our campuses and newsrooms. What is most striking is how these editors and publishers are insisting that they are supporting free speech by silencing others. Repressive tolerance, according to Herbert Marcuse. In the last 10 years, censorship has become the rage, from the halls of Congress to the college campuses. Free speech is now often portrayed as an existential threat rather than a right defining our constitutional system. The crisis of faith is no more evident than in the call of writers and journalists for books to be banned or speakers to be silenced. The latest and one of the most disturbing examples is a letter signed by hundreds of, quote, literary figures last week to get companies to block publication of a book by Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett because they disagreed with her judicial philosophy. After all, why burn books when you can effectively ban them? The public letter entitled, quote, "We Dissent," makes this usual absurd protestation that just because we're seeking to ban books of those with opposing views, we still care deeply about freedom of speech. They simply justify their anti-free speech position by insisting that any harm in the form of censorship is less than the form of assault on inalienable human rights. Where have we heard that before, Jose? Inalienable human rights.
Declaration of Independence.
And?
Fonogi
Tomorrow, yeah. And the assault on inalienable human rights in opposing abortion or other constitutional rights. So the right to an abortion is an inalienable human right. I wonder if the 62 million babies that were killed in the womb would sign up for that idea. Yet the letter is not simply dangerous. It is perfectly delusional. While calling for the book to be blocked, the writers bizarrely insist we are not calling for censorship. While the letter has been described as signified, as signed by literary figures, it actually contains many who are loosely connected to the broader literary community, like Philip Tooley, Imam. Well, if he's an imam, he's obviously part of the literary community. He's got the Koran down pat, right? And also Barbara Hirsch, avid reader, part of the literary community, signed this petition. It also includes many who are simply identified by initials or names like Leslie, without any stated connection. Nevertheless, there are many editors and publishing figures who list their companies and university presses with their titles and calling for censorship. The list speaks loudly to why dissenting or conservative authors find it more difficult to publish today. These are editors who are publicly calling for banning the publication of those who hold opposing views from their own. The focus of the letter is the fact that Barrett voted with the majority in the Dobbs decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's what Supreme Court justices do. Barrett has been singled out in the past due to her judicial philosophy, which is shared by many federal judges and millions of citizens. Her home has been targeted, and activists have published school information on her young children. Recently, Rhodes College alumni sought to strip references to Barrett from the college because they disagree with her views. Now, this is all part of the same, I keep pointing this out. This all goes back to the Frankfurt School, Antonio Gramsci, cultural Marxism, neo-Marxism, etc. And when they started tearing down statues of Confederate figures in the southern part of the United States, this is the beginning. It's all part of the same process. That you must not only rebut or contradict opposing views, you must destroy the person that holds the views. It's kind of a Frank Areola writ large. Barrett's college seniority was even forced to apologize for simply congratulating her for being one of a handful of women to be nominated to the Supreme Court. So Barrett's sorority, congratulations, Amy Coney Barrett. Our sister, our sorority sister, you made the Supreme Court. Congratulations. Dobbs' decisions comes out. Amy, you got to apologize. You've done a bad thing in that Dobbs decision. You should have never been on the Supreme Court. No attack appears beyond the pale for the media or the left. Barrett sat through days of such baseless attacks on her character and even had to face attacks referencing her children. Ibram X. Kendi, better known as Ben Rogers, the director of the Center for Anti-Racist Research at Boston University, claimed that her adoption of 2 Haitian children raised the image of a, quote, white colonizer, and suggested that the children were little more than props for their mother. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs. We'll come back and spend a little more time with Ibram X. Kendi.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show. Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle. Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits. Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-RGIO.
Across all walks of life, all professions, every societal change, education has been the way forward. As governor, I built 4 new schools and broke ground on a 5th. Tony and I have a plan to modernize and build for the future. This election, vote for the team that has actually done something for education on Guam. For details on our plans for education, visit CamachoAdaForGuam.com. I'm Felix Camacho.
I'm Tony Ada.
We approve this message.
Okay, so here we are at the home stretch. Churchill Downs, 6 furlongs. I crossed the finish line and put the cap on another episode of Tall Tales for today. So, this whole Ibram X. Kendi thing, the Center for Anti-Racist Research at Boston University, Kendi and a couple others say that the way to end racism is to have more racism. That you must provide special provisions, special privileges for people of color, reparations, on and on and on. It's this whole inclusion, equity, diversity thing written with a very large, fat crayon. And anyone who stands in the way is going to get crushed, especially if that person has the temerity of not having skin tone as dark as Mr. Kendi is concerned. So somebody like Amy is just a classic target for these people. And I got to pause here for a second. This whole idea of not just opposing a nominee to the Supreme Court, but destroying that person started way back in the 1980s when we had an extremely qualified nominee by President Reagan who went before the Senate and was borked by Teddy Kennedy and by Joe Biden. And I read a long biographical piece on the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell. Mitch was a freshman senator, or a new senator at the time. He vowed this is never, ever going to happen again. And that's kind of how you got Amy Coney Barrett. Because up until that time, you know, the Supreme Court nominations were not controversial. But the Democrats, Biden and Kennedy, decided that they had to make a point, that they wanted to control that branch of government as well as the Senate. And then, of course, when Clarence Thomas came along, we had Anita Hill. We'll never really know what motivated Anita Hill, who followed Thomas from agency to agency. Didn't seem to have any problem at all until after the hearings were over. And then she appeared out of nowhere and came forward and trashed Clarence Thomas. Since that time, the National Boxing Association has thought about licensing confirmation hearings for Supreme Court justices because they turn out to be just about verbal fistfights. And in the case of Barrett here, even after she's confirmed, she's a credible person. She's a smart person. She's educated. She's done all of the things that we would expect of a Supreme Court justice. But she's not woke. You know, she probably knows what a woman is, even though she's not a biologist. So we got to beat up on her and trash her as much as we can. Going back to Turley's article here, or column, the signatories express a common righteous rage to justify censoring others. We have seen this hypocrisy openly displayed by those who want to censor authors or journalists in the name of free speech or the free press. The editors of the legal site Above the Law have repeatedly swatted down objections to the loss of free speech and viewpoint diversity in the media and academia. In a recent column, they mocked those of us who objected to the virtual absence of conservative or libertarian members at law schools. Senior editor Joe Patrice defended predominantly liberal faculties based on the fact that liberal views reflect real law as opposed to junk law. Patrice regularly calls those with opposing views racists, including Chief Justice John Roberts, because of his objection to race-based criteria in admissions as racial discrimination. And of course, that's the quick draw weapon, Jose. Whenever you are one of these folks on the left side and someone comes along and says, you know, I can't agree with your idea. I think your thinking is flawed. You're a racist. That's why you're saying that. You are a racist. How do you defend? No, I'm not a racist. Patrice explained that hiring a conservative academic was akin to allowing a believer in geocentrism to teach at a university. It's that easy. You simply declare that conservative views shared by a majority of the Supreme Court and roughly half the population are not acceptable to be taught. Writers, editors, commentators, and academics have embraced rising calls for censorship and speech controls, including academics rejecting the very concept of objectivity in journalism in favor of open advocacy. Columbia journalism dean and New Yorker writer Steve Call has denounced how the First Amendment right to freedom of speech was being weaponized to protect disinformation. In an interview with Stanford Daily, Stanford communications professor Ted Glasser rejected the notion that journalism is based on objectivity and said that he views journalists as activists because journalism at its best, and indeed history at its best, is all about morality. You know, like killing babies in the womb, that's morality. Harvard Law School professor Jack Goldsmith and University of Arizona law professor Andrew Keen Woods have called for Chinese-style censorship of the internet, stating that China was largely right and the United States was largely wrong. You know, the problem with China, the Chinese style of censorship, Jose, you sit down and you censor a whole argument, a whole article, and an hour later you want to do it again.
Took me a while.
Yeah, these are professors, writers, and editors who are sawing off the very branch upon which they sit. That would not be a problem, but for the fact that they are doing lasting damage not only to free speech but their professions. For a writer to be against free speech is like an athlete being against exercise. It's a defining right for our country and an existential right for writers and academics. This letter is not simply another manifestation of viewpoint intolerance. It's a statement of virtual self-loathing from people who work in the literary world, writers and editors who cannot abide the publication of opposing views. As for Justice Barrett, such attacks are unlikely to deter her from ruling according to her long-held and well-established jurisprudential views. She does not deserve such attacks, but these individuals are the face of rage in our society. It's a general psychosis that overwhelms every countervailing value. It allows writers and editors to oppose free speech and expect us to applaud them for us. Now, we have a local contribution to add to this, Jose, so go forward with it.
All right, this contribution came in yesterday by a faithful listener. My name is Ishmael. I am a former soldier and retired Navy chief, a second-generation American, a war veteran, a father, and a God-loving, damn fine American. I am not a threat to democracy. I am the face of democracy. If anyone tells you voting anything but Democrat translate into a threat to our democracy, then that's a huge red flag that they are a threat to democracy. I've traveled the world, 68 countries in all, seen the results of all types of government, all dictatorships, monarchies, totalitarian, fascist, and communist forms of governments move to silence all opposition. Not my opinion, just human history. Anyone that tells you we have a democracy is lying to you. We have a constitutional republic. Big difference. Why do they lie? Because they want a democracy. Why? Because it's far easier for them to control and manipulate. Again, I am not a threat to democracy. I am living proof of the American dream.
What a great piece, huh? What's his name? Ishmael?
Ishmael Blair.
Oh, that's our tailgater, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good job, Ishmael. Man, that was a really nicely put together, and you know, I feel good because it's kind of an endorsement of Tall Tales and the kind of stuff that we talk about here all the time, and people like Ishmael, who are right-thinking folks, who are good Americans, feel at home here.
And understand what he's talking about.
Exactly.
Not just blowing smoke.
Exactly. Good job, Ishmael. Can we get that reduced to writing, Jose, and post it somewhere in the website or post it somewhere in the show tomorrow?
Sure thing.
Yeah, give Ishmael some credit for it. Good job, Ishmael. Great job. So here we are at the end of the show. I voted already. If you haven't voted, get out there, vote. And I should have perhaps mentioned earlier There's certainly one guy that I voted for is Ken Leon Guerrero. You know, Ken is the guy that's out there really fighting and doing a lot of stuff that ought to be the job of the newspapers, but of course it isn't. And Ken is filling a really vital vacancy in our society there. And I just hope that if he's elected, he'll continue doing that. I voted for some other folks, and I think probably my own method of going through it, if you're pro-abortion, you're not going to get my vote. And if you want to do the wishy-washy, well, I'm not for abortion, but I don't think I should impose my views on others, I'd actually speak against you if I had the opportunity, because you don't want to do that. You have no business being in the legislature, because that's what senators do. So if you haven't voted yet, take a look at that list, and remember, you don't have to vote for all 15. If you got a couple folks that you really want to see voted in, then the key for you is bullet voting. Because let's say I wanted Ken to be elected. I voted for Ken, and I vote for 14 others. That's one vote for Ken, 14 against him. If I vote for Ken and leave the rest blank, that's one vote for Ken. It's called bullet voting. If you want to make sure that you get somebody out, it's not quite as direct, and it's a little more complicated, because what you have to do is figure out the 15 people that have the best chance of getting elected, whether you like them or not, and vote for them, hoping to freeze out the one you don't want. But of course, we can't vote against people here. If we could, I'd certainly vote against our president. But now it's time for me to say goodbye. Let's go, Brandon!
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
It's Election Day. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The first polls open in 2 hours from now in the highly anticipated midterm elections. Republicans optimistic of regaining control of the House of Representatives.
The Fox News Power Rankings projects Republicans to take control by 19 seats, with a best-case scenario of holding 249 seats. Some unusual races could propel the GOP. Currently, the party has no members of the House representing New England. Today, races in Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island are all in play. Democrats, though, have some unlikely opportunities as well, with candidates having the edge in House races in Alaska and Kansas, districts that normally lean Republican. Fox News has the Democrats' best-case scenario at 212 seats, which is still below the 218 majority threshold.
Fox's Ryan Schmelz in the Senate. The Fox News Power Rankings give Republicans the best chance of flipping Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona, all rated as toss-ups, while Colorado and New Hampshire are rated as in-play lean Democrat. Pennsylvania is rated as a toss-up, with races in North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin all tight. Former President Trump making an election eve campaign appearance in Southwest Ohio.
The great people of Ohio are going to send J.D. Vance to the United States Senate.
Former president predicting the GOP will win control of both houses of Congress. There was speculation that Mr. Trump would use Monday night's rally to announce his candidacy for president. He did not, but said he will have a very big announcement 1 week from today. There is a problem at Powerball. The scheduled drawing Monday night for a jackpot worth an estimated $1.9 billion hasn't taken place yet because one of the participating states has not met all of the required security protocols, that is, in closing out ticket sales. The drawing cannot take place until those protocols are met, expected to be later this morning. Americans listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
5 inches of rain by tomorrow.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com. Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast.